Welcome to Bad First Impression, the podcast about movies and where we meet them. Every week, me and a guest go to a repertory screening here in New York and talk about how the theater-going experience affected our impression of the film. This week, I have with me the show's social media manager, Lily Steinberg, and we are here. Well, this is a conversation, actually, exactly what we're here to discuss. Originally, when we announced this episode, we were going to go. The primary impetus was we were going to go talk about the Amazon miniseries Expats, the 5th episode of which was screening at Film at Lincoln Center with Lulu Wong there in person to talk about it. And we were going to cover it alongside Nashville, which she had originally selected to screen as like an influence of it, like part of a little like 3-day series they let her program there. And we didn't go see Nashville because there was a terrible snowstorm in New York and transit wasn't shut down. But as always, transit from Queens into Manhattan was severely delayed.
It's been really bad this year.
It was really, really cold that night.
And it was a late showing. It was a late showing of a long movie.
It was an 8:30 showing of a 2.5-hour movie. And I didn't feel like... It's this thing that I always get into with these, is that this podcast is almost not even really a movie podcast. It's like a movie-going podcast. I feel like we talk as much about the logistics of going to these things and of like having this as your hobby and all the weird things that get in the way of you trying to live your trying to live your life as like somebody who wants to be up by a certain time the next day. You know, like I want to go view these things as they're intended to be viewed in the best format possible. But at the same time, I don't want to get home at midnight on a weeknight, you know, knowing I have to be somewhere the following morning.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to walk around on the black ice right now, you know?
Yeah. And then have to deal with train delays on the way home after like a cold walk.
Yeah. Well, because you know that the N train would have used the storm as an excuse to not run the trains all night.
The N train would never use anything as an excuse to get away with bad behavior.
Yeah,
no,
I know.
I mean, inside baseball I feel bad. I sometimes wonder, is
it too niche?
Is this completely inaccessible to somebody who doesn't live in New York or has never and isn't like aware of, because we talk about trains a lot and we talk about
just part of life.
And we'll talk about like, well, of course we all hate the Angelica because you can hear the trains through the back walls. We talk about stuff like that a lot.
Well, that's interesting New York lore for people who don't live here, because everyone who doesn't live in New York romanticizes
counter argument. As somebody who's not from New York, side note, Lily is an East Coast liberal elite who grew up in Manhattan. As someone who didn't grow up here, I will tell you, the idea that you think everyone who lives outside New York is looking to you to live vicariously.
Lots of people really love New York.
You have the vibrant width of experience as a lifelong New Yorker.
I've met people from outside of New York. For example, you, who moved here.
I did move
to be here.
I did move here to be here because there's more
stuff here
going on.
But, for example, the trains are always messed up. Also, for example, the trains are always running at the Angelica.
The walls are like made out of like fucking rice.
Well, and you know what else is crazy? The trains don't run. They don't run well at all. Why are they always running on time behind the Angelica?
I don't know, but we're getting dangerously close to like airline food jokes. Like, what is the deal with the F train? It's never running except for when I'm at the Angelica.
Okay, the F train truly runs like once every 30 minutes, except when you're watching the quietest movie ever at the Angelica.
I know. One day we should just do.
One day we have to go to the Angelica.
We should just break. We'll eventually. Like, I'm not specifically trying to plan an Angelica episode because I know that just like
it's gonna happen.
It'll just happen. But like we should just break format and just do like a power ranking of the train lines at some point and just talk about.
I thought you were gonna say of the rep theaters.
Of the rep theaters, we
could do that now.
The only thing with that is that like there are so many. I was looking at. There's a really good resource. It's called Screen Slate.
We definitely haven't been.
It's like there's like a blog and like it has a list of every venue.
Yeah.
And so it includes museums that screen things. It includes kind of like single theater, not for profit things that might do things.
Yeah. So you're saying is there's at least one really lame person who would get mad at us for leaving out their favorite, like one screen that shows one movie a year.
I don't want to venture to call any of those people lame because I have a podcast about going to those venues.
I can call you lame though.
You're like the most frequent guest on the podcast about going to these venues. I mean, I don't know that I should be getting high and mighty now. We have at least 2 episodes I can think of where we go long describing other people at screenings that we're at as losers.
Yeah.
A thing that we're going to do a little bit of today.
Oh, 100%.
And
yeah.
I want to use that to seek back to, this is nominally an episode about expats. What?
Sieg?
Sieg, Segue.
Segue.
Sieg. No, like Sieg. Like to
Segue.
transition.
Segue.
Segue is like an what do you call when you look up in a thesaurus? A synonym. Thank you. I forgot.
But that's how it's spelled.
Segue is like a vehicle. Like it's a 2-wheeled vehicle.
That's all. It's also a vehicle. It's fine.
Segue is pronounced segue. You wanna bank on that?
I've never heard Sieg, I can tell you that.
Okay. We're gonna look up the pronunciation of the word Sieg. And
no, we are not. You can play the little no internet game though.
We are not on the internet.
You can just play the no internet game on
here.
camera.
No. We'll get on Wi-Fi because this is really good.
This is really good content. You should definitely
Connor,
leave
what is
all
the
of this
Wi-Fi
in.
password? We'll bleep it out.
I love podcasts, all lowercase.
Okay,
adorable.
cool. Thank you, Connor. What?
That's at the end.
Yes, I heard the S. Okay, cool. This is the Get on the Wi-Fi podcast.
This is the podcast where we call people and ask them their Wi-Fi passwords.
I'm gonna turn up the volume here and I'm gonna play the pronunciation.
Segue.
All right. Well, I was wrong.
What the fuck is Sieg?
Why is it pronounced like why is it pronounced like Uruguay?
You'd probably have to look up the what's the word I'm looking for? Origin.
Welcome to Bad First Etymology, where we look up the origin of. By the way,
Sorry that I made fun of you. I've just truly never heard that before.
By the way, I'm not crazy. The first thing when you Google segue,
is it segue or segue?
Is it segue or spelled S like?
Yes, but also yes, segue is also another thing. That's the thing that the guy who made it also died on it, right?
The guy who invented the Segway.
Yeah, he like drove
He
himself off
died
a cliff.
on it. I don't know. I'm on the YouTube page for Segway now.
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia. I'm on
Remember?
the YouTube. I'm on Segway's YouTube page, looking up videos of guys riding Segways off cliffs.
Remember the time we were with your sister and we were walking to Metrograph, and because your sister is obviously not from here, you pointed to the Chrysler Building and you went, "Allison, that's the Empire State Building," with like full seriousness. And I was like, "Are you being ironic or what's going on here?"
So here's the thing: the Segway was invented by Dean Common.
Okay,
I'm on his Wikipedia page right now.
maybe it was the CEO.
I will tell you this. He's still alive. I was gonna say his death is not mentioned on there.
Someone involved in the Segway died on the Segway, and I think maybe it was the CEO, not the inventor.
Okay.
If something crazy happened,
we have spent
fact check this
too much
later.
time
Talking
on
about Segway.
Segway due to my mispronunciation of the other word Segway. But I want to segue
Oh, I taught him something new today.
into a discussion of what we're kind of covering today and why we're covering what we're covering. So we are not covering Nashville, as I said, for logistical reasons. Frankly, an element of like theater going, I don't want to. We can actually like get into this with some other movies we saw literally this week, actually. But I don't want to go to a movie that I am fairly sure I'm going to enjoy and then resent it because of the circumstances under which I saw it.
Yes.
So
because that's absolutely happened to me.
we made the executive decision to change it. And instead, what we're doing today is we're kind of talking about everything we saw around Valentine's Day, which thematically all are in their own like weird, fucked up ways romance movies.
Yeah. Well,
Now-
so I wore a heart shirt because it's Valentine's Day. So the Elizabeth Holmes shirt, does that have something to do with Valentine's Day?
Yeah, her wonderful whirlwind romance with
Oh, because blood comes from the heart.
There's a better one than me. Have you, I think it was you who sent me like the leaked text between her and Sunny Balwami.
Maybe.
Where,
I think you sent them to me, but it doesn't matter.
Where she says something like this, like long, like you're my sun and my moon. My whole reason for living is you, and he just texts her back, okay.
Goated.
So we are discussing, we actually saw a couple more and we'll touch on them a little bit, but the ones that I want to define as discussion topics, because they're the ones that we saw that I think we'd seen them before. We have things that are worth saying about them. And I also think they're all, one of them is based on a true story. One of them, the in ending almost doesn't matter for it. And the other is just like more of a, it's not about what happens. It's about how it happens. I don't really feel the need to worry about spoiling something that I didn't tell people was going to happen, because I think all three of these movies, you are going to enjoy them to the same degree, whether you know the ending or whether you don't.
I agree with you.
So the three that I wanted to bring up as discussion topics, and again, we're going to get to these after Expats, but I just want to give this to you, to the audience, on the off chance that you are like, I need to have seen these. If you're like a compulsive watcher before you watch them,
I'm just imagining someone pausing this and then watching 3 movies and being like, finally, I can come back.
Well, honestly,
you would do that.
This would be a fantastic triple feature. The movies we're talking about are They Came Together, the 2014 spoof movie. We're talking about Star 80, Bob Fosse's final film that he made to the objection of basically everybody alive, and one of my all-time favorite movies, The Heartbreak Kid, Elaine May's
Best movie ever
1972
made.
masterpiece.
Personally, I would watch them in reverse order. I would not watch Star 80 first. I would watch it second, and then I would watch They Came Together as the ultimate palate cleanser.
So here's the thing. I would watch Star 80 last in any, like if I was pairing it with anything, because after I watch that movie, I don't want to do anything but lay down. Like, including watching a nice movie.
Well, bedtime.
You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
like, that's the type of movie where you're like, look, nothing is going to be good for the rest of the day. So I should just go wait for it to be tomorrow.
Guy who accidentally watched that movie at 8 a.m. because he paused right after hearing the movies.
I wish you guys would have warned me that it would ruin my whole day. I had to take off work.
Yeah.
So we're going to be discussing those 3 movies, not comprehensively, but maybe see if there's any sort of thematic relevance between them, besides the fact that they all centralize a romance,
Kind of, yeah.
Well, not kind of, undoubtedly. Each of those movies has as its like main driver a romance between a man and a woman. First, let's touch on Expats a little bit.
Okay.
It is based
Which has
on
nothing to do with romance. Not nothing, but it's not.
It's
not
primary.
primary.
It's not really about romance. It has romance in it, and it's about relationships.
Yes.
But it's based on Janice Y.K. Lee's, I think 2016 novel, The Expatriates. I'd never heard of it prior. When I saw that this was playing, I looked up the novel, said, "Oh, I would like to read that," and we both read it in preparation for this. Just overall thoughts on the book. What did you think of it?
I liked it. I liked the story. I found it very compelling to read. I didn't love the writing style. It was more distracting at the beginning, but I was at the point with it where the way that she would write was like many sentences would have a second sentence saying the same thing as the initial sentence after a comma. I just kept noticing that. And finally, almost every time there was a comma on some internal thing, I skipped the second half of the sentence.
You just skipped.
And I generally don't like to do that. It was bothering me that much. It was taking me out of the story because I was like, there's a little too much going on for me to waste my time with this.
That is a wild.
I don't usually do that. I don't like doing it.
The way I am reading is I'm like really like compulsive about it. Is like if I visually lose my place on a page, for example, and I'm afraid I might have skipped part of a sentence, my like completionist brain is like, well, then you won't have read the whole book.
If I'm enjoying the writing style, I'll do that. If I've done that before where it was the next day, I didn't remember everything from the last page, and I just like went back to the beginning of the chapter just because I was really enjoying the book. And again, it's not that I wasn't enjoying the book; it's that the writing style was really getting on my nerves.
Yeah,
and I was like, I like the story. Don't make me not like the story.
It's a really contemplative kind of internal story, and we'll talk a little bit about why that makes it difficult to adapt for screen. But it's because I think this is like a popular, but not like not everybody knows it. But the basic outline of it is it's from the perspectives of 3 different women who are all for various reasons expatriated from America to Hong Kong. You have Margaret, who's the oldest of the 3. She's a mother of 3. She's married to a businessman. and we'll get into a little bit how she relates. There's her friend Hillary, who has kind of a marriage on the rocks. I think they never clarify what the husbands do. I don't think it matters at all, but they're just
I couldn't
business
tell you what they
husbands.
do.
Like that's all
They're
they do.
business husbands.
I
don't think you're supposed to know.
I just think that like
I think that's part of it is that
like
you don't is
the
that
guy,
like they wouldn't really know.
the guy who reads Expatriates.
You don't know what I do.
So
And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean like I go to work. You don't know what I'm doing because it doesn't concern you.
yeah. Not because I forgot what it was. No, it would be so funny to be like the guy who read Expatriates. Like, what do you think? It's okay.
I wish they elaborated more on David's job.
I really wish they had focused on like what like David does at work more. Like, does he manage any big accounts? You know, like does he have to know like, you know, the Google suite, or is he?
Although I feel like I'm talking about it as if they come home and they just go business, 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 like in the book. But they don't do that.
I'll actually say this in both the book and the series. They come home and for what I assume are extremely high paying jobs, they're able to take time away from they can take time away from these jobs.
I mean, I will say
they don't have to do anything.
Yeah, I don't think that that's
I still have the Wikipedia
necessarily
page
a
for
problem.
Segue up. I'm gonna open. I
don't think that that's
page.
necessarily like makes it unrealistic. I honestly think that we are so used to the way Americans work that we don't
these
really
are
know.
Americans. That's the thing.
Yes, but they're not in America.
No.
So the corporate life might be different. I guess we don't really know because they presumably live in a very American part.
I assume it's an income
of Hong
thing.
Kong.
Just that they're so high level that they're at the point where they're not doing real work anymore. Like anybody who makes a certain amount of money.
Yeah. Sit around with their shoes off. No offense.
Yeah.
I didn't mean
I took my shoes off like as a consideration of like so I don't keep kicking you.
No, I know. I just mean like I think of guys who don't really do stuff all day as guys who can take their shoes off.
Yeah. Was that a stereotype before Steve Jobs, or did he invent that? There's no way to verify that. Did Steve Jobs invent?
I'm not even.
Shoeless?
I have nothing to say here.
So anyway, they have husbands who have like just high paying jobs that they were expatriated to Hong Kong for. Yeah. Hillary has this kind of marriage on the rocks, and she is dealing with infertility issues and is looking into adopting a child. And an element that kind of goes on in the book is that she's trying to adopt an older child because in the adoption process, they're not considered as desirable. Most people want to adopt like
older
babies.
And mixed race, which they were also
yes,
saying. Like,
that's an element of it too.
Yeah.
And then you have Mercy, who is the only one who's not married. She's significantly younger than the others. She is a Columbia graduate who I'm pretty sure it's Columbia.
I think so.
She goes to Hong Kong just kind of on like a whim to go live there and is just working various, odd jobs that don't have anything to do with the degree that she has. And she has key interactions with each of the other two women. The impetus for much of what's happening and how these three women begin to interact is an event that happened prior to where the novel finds a setup, which is that Margaret was looking for a different nanny for her kids. And
you see all of that in the book, but yes.
You see it all, but it's told to you as a flashback, I mean, as in it happens before the setup.
Yes.
So she's looking for a nanny for her kids. And she meets Mercy, who she likes and gets along. And then on a trip to go visit her, Margaret's family in Korea.
Yeah. Well, also something that I think is fleshed out better in the book. Obviously, they don't have time in the show, but that like she was their babysitter for some period of time. That
doesn't happen in the show. It's like
no, it doesn't,
and it doesn't. They don't go to Korea. I think
no.
Just for
what I mean is like
efficiency.
it's something where like in the book it makes a lot of sense why she's trusted.
Yes. We can talk about the way. That
we can talk about that later.
As an adaptation.
I don't know. I just felt like that was important.
Yeah, but in the book, she's
like their active babysitter.
She accompanies them as a hired nanny to basically, a family trip to Korea, and because she stops paying attention to all three of the kids all at once, their youngest son, 3-year-old, he's just G in the book, but he's Gus on the show.
Because you can't really do that in a.
It's weird in the book that his name is just
It
G.
is. I understand that like what she was trying to do. That's also one of the like things with the writing style where I'm like, this is like just a little too much for like what the story is for me.
I assumed it was a dissociative thing because it's one second. Let me actually just describe what happens here.
We can talk about that
later. That their son just disappears. No further explanation is ever given about it. He could have been kidnapped. He could have wandered off on his own.
But we don't
know
no
idea of what happened to him. And I assumed in the book calling him G is a dissociative, like it's too painful to think of his full name.
Yeah, for everyone.
Yes.
Well, and also I think because he's not really in the story at all.
No, he's not.
That's part of it, is that he's
like,
just a
really
memory.
But
Yeah.
Mercy is in Hong Kong kind of dealing with the fallout of like the guilt over having caused this like family destroying event. And you find out that the reason that Hillary's marriage is going poorly is because her husband is cheating on her with Mercy.
Yes. Which happens later, but yes.
Yes, and everything kind of spirals out from there. I'll say this, it's a pretty straightforward adaptation, and that with a couple key points that we'll get into here, there are no like big brave choices that are made in terms of like changing what the outcome is or how things happen.
The one big thing that I noticed is the change of Hillary not wanting to adopt, and instead her thing is that she doesn't want kids at all, which I think changes the ending significantly.
Yeah,
because that's like part of the point.
It's that instead of her coming to terms with the like inadvertent ways she goes about becoming a mother,
and they give her a completely different storyline.
She instead has a storyline about having issues of like racial identity in connection with her parents, who you find out were abusive. It's honestly like let's run down the list of
also like I don't want to say that like her not wanting to have kids is not a valid choice for that to make. I think that it doesn't not make sense for the character, but again, it does change something really, really integral to the book.
It's not a bad idea.
It's something where if that was in the book, I would have been confused by it.
You just would have to have a strong take as to why you're making that
Yes,
change.
and I don't necessarily think the show does.
No.
And also I think, because I really enjoy, I love when a book feels like reading gossip, and I really love when she's like on the forums reading like the gossip about herself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you're not even replacing it with something else. Like, I don't like this.
Yes. So we're spoiling the book as well as the series,
bit, yeah.
because you can't spoil one without the other.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I
don't want to like give away what the last scene in the book is at all, but I do want to say that it's much better than whatever they had to do in the show.
I was reading, or
yes,
I was listening to last week's episode.
Okay. And
I got to the point in the show where I give my like 40 minutes in spoiler warning, like I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop doing it. I don't feel any need to it. I
put it in the description, honestly.
I don't even want to do that.
Why?
Honestly. Because
someone's going to get mad at you.
I think, that'll be a new experience for Devin. I feel like you see, a 90-minute to 2-hour podcast about
a movie. Yeah, sure.
And you're like, and this has actually literally come up before on an episode with you, where I was like, if you turn that on and then it gets spoiled for you, that's on you.
Sure.
Man.
No, and it's not like we have to do anything for
and
legal
this is an
reasons.
Imagined fight. Nobody has come at me with this yet.
No, yeah, it's not.
So I guess this is your final warning.
I'm just worried that someone is going to do that someday.
Then good. Honestly, it'll be an important lesson for them.
You're very excited for death threats.
Great. I don't think anybody.
I told you my dressage story.
Do you think your dressage story? Well, who's more unhinged? Is it
horse girls or film fans, film bros,
or horse girls? I think it's horse girls, right?
You think so? I mean, because obviously, like 14-year-olds don't have life experience, but neither do 40-year-old film bros.
See, there's a version of film fandom that is mainstream. I would argue there's no version of horse girlism that's mainstream. It's all niche.
Everybody knows what a horse girl is.
Everybody knows what one is, but
everybody in Australia watched Saddle Club when they were a kid. And everybody in Australia was in Saddle Club.
I'll tell you what, I checked my stats. I think we have like 7 listeners in Australia. So if I'm fucking up, sorry.
They're being validated by this conversation right now where I talk about Saddle Club.
If you're a listener in Australia, DM me and tell me if I'm being insensitive about the degree of cultural permeation that Saddle Club had.
And tell me how many Hemsworths were in Saddle Club.
A thing that, by the way,
I think 2.
I don't know what Saddle Club is. Like, you're telling me right now.
Oh, it was like not Degrassi, but it was like a teen show about 3 girls who ride horses. I think I've told you this, that I didn't really watch the show but I used to go on the Saddle Club website because they
Mhm.
had games and they had a sketch tutorial of how to draw a horse. And I still remember the sketch tutorial of how to draw a horse like from memory
Yeah.
because I used to do it every day.
I have no further notes about Saddle Club, to be totally honest.
Do you want me to
with
sit
you.
here and draw a horse?
No.
Okay.
Are you good at drawing? It's something I don't know
No.
about you. I've known you.
I'm really bad at
known you
drawing.
for 7 years now. I don't know if you.
You have known me for less than 7 years.
I thought I knew you for 7 years. We'll do that math later. I don't
Mid
know.
2018.
Anyway, Expats,
Yes.
or rather, Expatriates, the novel. I guess we're basically
The
done.
expatriates.
The Expatriate. I guess we're basically done talking about it. We can.
Megan, the expatriates.
Yes, we
Sorry.
can talk about. So this is in terms of like big
Okay.
differences from the source material to the adaptation. At one point, Mercy has a boyfriend in the book who is turned into a girlfriend of the same name, Charlie. In the book, he is kind of a straight-laced, do what you're supposed to, get a good job, try to get married fresh out of college.
He's
type of
also
guy.
very unbothered.
He's very unbothered.
Which is like a very big part of his personality.
They change him into a kind of activist, like a Hong Kong protest, like activist. The show does shockingly little with that.
Yes.
It really feels like they changed it just so that so it could be pointed to and said, look, we're hip. It is really one of those like,
Look, we did some research.
we have a gay protester on this show now. And I think
Well, because I also think that like if they were using it better to like really talk about it more, I think if you don't know anything about those protests, you're not learning anything about them from the show.
yeah, well, the show like has shockingly little to say about them,
Yeah.
other than they are a factor that the characters
Yeah.
were focusing on.
No, yeah, because
Are-
if the purpose is not to educate the audience, then what is the purpose?
Yeah, the show has no take on them other than look at how these rich people ignore them, which is true. But then why did you make a story based in Hong Kong about the rich people there? You know what? It doesn't interrogate them enough to be about how rich people ignore them. It just kind of brushes up against that,
Mhm.
which only highlights that like, okay, then maybe these aren't the people to center your story on, I guess.
No, yeah. Well, and also because the personality of the Charlie character in the book makes sense because she's like so concerned with everything. And she like I remember she's always like making fun of stuff. And he's like, why do you think like that? Can't you just like enjoy something? Like
She's
it's
got-
so opposite from
She's
that.
in the book. She has a bit of characterization. No, Mercy.
Mercy.
In the book, Mercy has a bit of characterization that kind of reminds me of like what they end up doing with Britta on Community after a while, where she just kind of feels like she shouldn't be contented with the world. So she's just kind of
Yes,
getting
yes,
mad
yes, yes,
about
yes, yes.
things that she's not really educated enough to be angry about.
Yes.
And she's not actually directly affected by them, but they're just happening around her and they're bad.
Yeah. And Charlie's the one who's like, what are you even talking about? Why do
Well,
you?
it's like, well, you're not living
you don't
your-
even know anything.
You're
about
not
this.
living your life in a way where you're doing anything
Yeah.
about it. And you're also not being affected by it.
Yeah.
So I don't know why you're mad about it.
Yes.
And she just kind of is like, okay. You know, she just gets
Yeah.
angry. She
I
doesn't
think
do anything.
There is a lot of Mercy's personality that comes out really well in the book that I don't think comes off as well in the show.
Yeah. I think overall, this is a book.
I think she's a really well-written character in
Yeah.
that like she really annoys me. Like in a way where I'm like, oh wow, this is like a really fleshed out character.
She
She feels like a real person who is bothering
the
me.
book is very internal, and it's about nothing will like have physically happened in many scenes, but something seismically will have changed inside Margaret's head where she has like thought about something and like come to a conclusion and argued with herself and given like contrary arguments to what she's thinking or feeling
Mhm.
at the time, or acknowledging what she probably should do versus what she really wants to do versus what she feels like she needs to do.
Yeah.
That's makes it very difficult to adapt dynamically.
Yeah. I also think part of like what I like about the Mercy character is when you're in her head, I feel like at least for me, I'm like getting frustrated with her choices and everything that she's doing. And then I'll see her from another perspective and I'll be
Mhm.
like, that is how she would look from another perspective. That is what
Yes.
that character and then you're in her head again and you're like, oh yeah, because this is also the person who other people see like
Mhm.
this. If any of that makes sense, that's what I think is like so interestingly done about her
Yeah.
in a way that you don't get that in the show because you're kind of always seeing her from outside.
Mhm. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
The thing is, I remember when we watched, because we watched this as it came out on a weekly basis, saw episode 5 at Film and Lincoln Center, where Lulu Wang did like a Q&A afterwards. I got to be honest with you. I feel like this is an adaptation that really kind of fails to justify itself with a different take from the original source material. It's not
Yeah,
that it's,
I mean, I agree,
it's
but
not that it's badly done.
I agree, but the thing is, I think that's what most television adaptations are, and we just don't really watch them anymore. So like I couldn't tell you how that's different from like how Big Little Lies is adapted, because you could not pay me to read that book or watch that show.
Yeah, I just think that I don't know. It's the way these things are made, and it's just that they're not being adapted, because adapting means you're changing it. They're just being transposed.
Or if you see something and you're like, I think this would work better on screen. I think that's a valid take.
Whenever I see like a little flare of something, like not necessarily a narrative change, but like a visual idea that wouldn't really work in a book. Like in the last episode, there is a scene where Mercy has been hanging out with Charlie at one of the protests. And after she leaves, she puts her headphones on. And then I believe the entire duration of the song Safe and Sound plays over what is like a music video of her walking through Hong Kong.
And it was way too loud. I wasn't turning it down because I was like, this will be over soon. We haven't done anything like this before, so there's no way this is going to keep going.
It's literally her like swaying her head like this the whole time.
Yeah.
And I halfway through, when I realized, I'm like, oh, we're doing the whole thing. This isn't just a little 30-second like visual flare. I looked to you.
And it doesn't make sense. There's no reason to be doing this.
I look to you and I just go, what are we doing here? I don't like this. All the additions, and I honestly kind of sympathize with Lulu Wang, because I think she saw that as an opportunity to like
be inside the character's head for a second.
Well, no, to do something as a director, because I see that and I'm like, that's actually quite well directed. If that were the music video for Safe and Sound, that actually wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. It's got the right tone to match that song. It's fine.
But it doesn't connect with the show at all.
It is a total non sequitur. It has nothing to do with.
It's not like it's something she's ever mentioned liking either. It's not like there's payoff for this. Like if someone made fun of her for liking that song
every time there's something in there that is an addition or something you couldn't really do in a book. Doesn't feel like it is made to serve the story or the themes. It just kind of feels like it's there to just be doing something.
Well, so this is like a spoiler. So the episode that we saw in the theater was mostly about their help. And so Essie has this like big choice to make at the end of the episode. She mentioned something in the Q&A about it. And I was expecting more from her in the next episode.
Essie, by the way, we should clarify, is the maid Margaret has.
Yes.
Who she, in the book, hires Mercy to replace out of jealousy that Essie is closer to her own children.
She does that in the show too.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, the reason why she hires a whole
it's because that's happening. Yes. But like we have that whole thing, and you're seeing her side. She's talking. You see her talking to her family. And you get all of that stuff. And I was expecting a little bit about that in the next episode. At the very least, like her talking to someone. She gets like one line and we just like solve it off screen.
Yeah.
I was like, so what was the point in the episode if you don't want her to be a character anymore?
Let's talk about episode 5 a little bit. Now it's feature length. It's a little under 100 minutes. It really breaks the format in that the principal cast are in it, but in really, really supporting roles.
Yeah, they're more the supporting roles to our new main characters.
It is primarily about the various like house workers, like how they'd be referred to, like the help, and how interacting with these families and how they kind of get caught in the wake of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens during a big storm that locks everybody in their apartments, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Lulu Wang, who spoke after this episode, said that she wanted people to see this episode before the rest of the series. Having seen the whole thing in totality now, I don't know what she intends me to benefit from that.
No, well, there's that. Well, and also like the story stuff that happens is so clearly episode 5. Like it builds off of the last episode. And
it's not like
it's hugely spoilery for stuff that happens in the show.
It's not like it has just nothing to do with the other episodes. It just shifts who its main characters are.
Yeah. Well, and also again, so Essie's barely in the next episode. Pori's not in the next episode at
Yeah,
all.
you're right. She's literally not.
I
Pori
would
is-
have liked to know something. Like the next thing is that she's off for her audition to go on that show.
Mhm.
We don't even get like a single line in the next episode to
about
hear
like,
how
oh,
it went.
you didn't get it.
And like,
or-
why do you want me to be invested in these characters if you're not going to give me anything for them after? Because in that way, then you've also failed.
I think that this is probably a fairly charitable reading of it, but I would say that it's that because the main characters, the rich people, they have only a passing interest in these other people.
Only for an episode.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't think that that's intentional, but I see what you're saying.
I mean, with Puri, actually, I would argue maybe it is because at the end of the episode, Puri is Hillary's maid.
Yes.
And they get locked in their apartment together after she has a fight with David and kicks him out. So they're there and they're talking about like Puri's aspirations and what she wants to do. And they get drunk together. And the next morning, when Pori also hungover, walks over, like knowing she has to go get ready for her audition, finds Hillary like violently hungover, and she's like, will you like make me eggs? And she's giving a really specific instruction on how to make her coffee. And so the illusion is broken immediately. Yeah. We weren't friends. I just was locked in and you were my only option. And that is a weird thing to emphasize with your longest episode when the rest of the episode is about being sympathetic towards these women. It's just a strange thing to dedicate so much real estate within the show to, I think anyway. I don't know. How did you feel about where it fits in with the others? Because it almost seems to be working against the things the rest of the show is
as in
trying to
you
accomplish.
think that you're supposed to have more sympathy for like our main characters?
I think the other 5 episodes, including the finale, which comes after that, are trying to have me empathize with the situation the main characters are in.
I think you're supposed to empathize, but I also do think you're supposed to criticize. And I think it's more clear with Hillary's character in the book because the whole thing with the adoption thing, it is really odd.
Mhm.
And like the way that that person criticizes her online. I mean, I guess I'll just say it. The like she's like obsessed with going on these like expat forums.
Mhm.
And at one point she finds someone saying like, I know this girl who hasn't decided whether or not she's going to adopt this kid. She's trying him on like he's a ball gown.
Yeah.
And I think that like while you are supposed to sympathize with her for having this situation, you are also supposed to look at this and be like, what she is doing is not really nice to this kid. This is another real human being.
Oh, I actually disagree with you. I think the way that it's made in the book is that she actually would love to adopt him as soon as she could, but because of her pending divorce from David, which would make her look like a less suitable like adopter, and because the adoption process is so long, I don't think that she's trying him on. I think that she just really
I think there's a lot before like the David stuff where she is like, I should make my mind up soon.
Mhm.
I haven't made my mind up yet. She talks, especially at the beginning, she talks a lot about like people say that you'll know when you see them, and I never know. Like she's very wishy-washy about it.
I don't know.
And and by the time we've started the book, she's been having him over for a while.
My read on it is just that the adoption process is even with
And the adoption process is hard.
even
but-
with it's somebody like an older child like that the foster system is trying to get adopted as quickly as possible. The amount of paperwork and the amount of red tape you have to go through. I genuinely just assumed that was like a bad faith criticism she was receiving from somebody who gossiped about her.
It's a little too simplistic, but I think that there is truth to both of these viewpoints.
Sure.
That's what I think the book is saying.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying is that she is not 100% sympathetic, but she's not this horrible person.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I think that gets across better in the book. But I do think that that's like the point of that thing in that episode is like you can feel sympathy for this person and also know that she's this like spoiled brat.
It's a failing of both the book and the show, I think, that they're not really equipped to handle both the things they want to do, which is we want to tell these stories about the interior lives of these 3 women and how they interact in this really small community. And at the same time, we want to criticize excess wealth in, like in direct contrast of like the very poor areas of the city in which they're living that's not even their own home country.
Mhm.
I don't even really think the book, like, which has more space to work with, does not. It does kind of the same thing that the show does, which is it points at it and says, look, aren't these women hypocrites? And I say, well, yes, but I'm not stupid. I didn't need you to point that out to me. Are you going to do anything with that? And then neither the book or the show ever really does anything with that. I mean, episode 5 is the closest it gets to doing it, but that's kind of getting back to my larger point, which is that I think that is working contrary to, it's biting off more than it can chew, which is that this is a story about these 3 women and how they interact. Okay. And then that episode is saying, and it's also about how privilege gets in, like,
Well,
okay,
also
but like you understand you've got 6 episodes, right?
Well, because when you're reading the book, you are kind of purely an observer. You're not necessarily supposed to be thinking about all these conversations to that extent, and to the extent that Lulu Wang wants us to be thinking about episode 5, which is, I think the problem is that television, you can actually, like, you could have adapted this book, I think, in a way that was observing these characters' lives. I absolutely think that there was a way to do it, and I think that adding something like that in, it takes you out of that. But I also think that the rest of it is, I don't really like the changes that are made.
I just don't think they add anything, honestly. I mean, I think that this is a good opportunity to segue into talking about the various performances here.
I'm so happy I taught you that word.
Because I don't want to spend too much more time on expats.
Yes.
I think we should just go over the 3 main women here. We have Nicole Kidman.
We should equate each of them to one of the other 3 movies that we're going to talk about.
Are we going to do?
I'm just kidding.
Jesus.
I'm just kidding.
Are we going to
Sorry,
do,
you said 3 and I thought of the 3 movies.
Are we going to? So we have Nicole Kidman playing Margaret. I think it's probably worth saying, and it's really obvious the way the show is structured, Nicole Kidman is the type of star that this show just doesn't get made.
Yeah, the pitch for this show is definitely Nicole Kidman will be in this show.
And Nicole Kidman could play Margaret. Without being rude, she looks better than me, honestly. She is at an age where she's not believable as the mother of young children, in my mind.
For me, it's more that she's going a little too hard. And she's doing a little too much of her thing.
I love Nicole.
Me too.
She
can be a little much.
She's doing a lot because I think she's seeing the kind of roiling turmoil on the page that's happening with the character kind of in her head, right? And she is doing that by like kind of like just like blowing up on everybody all the time. Like she looks like a caged tiger who is just prowling around everyone.
She's always got that look in her eye.
She is like, give me a fucking reason. Like that she's looking at everybody, including her husband and children at all times. Like, no. Give me a reason to fucking yell at you. I would love a fight right now. And the way that the character works on the page, which I think is better, is that
Northman.
She's kind of like broken down and she's a little bit more passive, which makes it harder to play. I think works better for what happens to her, honestly. That she just kind of shuts down and can't react to anything, because you see that the character is going through the same thing here, which is that she doesn't really know how to live her life anymore because she feels so guilt-stricken that she has to resolve this situation before she can do anything else. Okay, then why is she just lashing out at everybody, every single opportunity? Getting violently angry at her husband for trying to find solace in religion.
Well, and also because like in the book, she's eager without like being really angry with people. Like I remember the whole thing where anytime they
certainly gets frustrated.
But like anytime they have any like anytime the police have any insight, possibly she's there like 2 hours before they open, like stuff like that.
And she's really eager.
She's like annoying to them, but in a way that's like understandable for the situation. Whereas like here in the show, they'll give her some kind of update and she'll be like screaming at whoever to get her more information. And it's like, but that's not what you were doing.
She's a lot.
It's a little much.
And I don't want to say
I just don't think that she was the right crazy person for this.
It's not even
there's other good crazy
it's
people.
Not even that I find her unsympathetic. You know, I'm like the situation, what happens to her is so horrible that like it doesn't really matter how she'd play, you're gonna find that character sympathetic.
Yeah.
It's so big in a way that kind of kills the nuance a little bit.
Yes. Exactly. It's just a little much.
Soraya Blue plays Hillary. They've changed her from being a white woman to being Indian. And as we said, they change her like main issue being from she really wants to adopt this kid to her and her husband are in disagreement about whether or not they want to have children. And also she has this other subplot about how she had an abusive father growing up and her mother kind of enabled it. And, you know, like in favor of like being proper and the way a family is supposed to function. What do you think? Because I think she's pretty good. I just don't necessarily know that she has a really strong take on it, other than she's
Yeah.
just kind of capable in there.
I think she is solid. Like I think that she is a good actress. Again, the changes are just so much from the book and from what I like about the character
Yeah.
that it is kind of hard. I don't know, and it's just like it's just the storyline ends up being less interesting because it's less about what's happening now and more about what happened previously.
I think this is a story that only benefits from being as contained as possible.
Yes.
If you add in, we're going to talk about one of the main character's parents and her like past trauma. I'm like, you've made this thing about how, oh, it's such a small world. Oh, we all interact in these ways that we don't even realize until we're already, interconnected. You've just made the world a little bit bigger in a story that is about making things smaller.
Yes.
So I don't really like the direction they take the character in instead. That being said, Soraya Blue is like pretty good in it. She's a good kind of stabilizing force. But I feel bad. I just don't have a ton to say about her, but I think the show is worse without her, honestly.
I think so too.
I really do.
I think she's good. I like her.
When we're talking about like chemistry between couplings, because the three big ones are Nicole Kidman and I believe the actor who plays her husband is named Brian T.
I believe so.
They have such an obviously like dramatic age difference in that she's so much older than him. And she is like angry at him for so much of it that any chemistry they have is like as coworkers. Like
he looks like her employee, like she's his manager.
And she's mad at him for like, getting reports in late or something. They don't have much romantic chemistry.
I don't think they have good romantic chemistry.
Now we have Jack Huston, who is a previous collaborator of Lulu Wang, who plays David, who's Hillary's husband, who is cheating on her with Mercy.
Yeah.
We'll get into their dynamic here in a minute. But I think even though their marriage is on the rocks, the extra attention that Lulu Wang gives to David, the character, who is basically a non-character, he's just a guy who causes problems and then he disappears.
Yeah, basically.
In the book. In the show, he has a little bit more time to kind of be like this, like, he's not lovable, but he's like this dumbass who just keeps stepping in things.
He's a much more interesting character.
He reminds me a lot of like Pete from Mad Men, and that I'm like, I hate you so much for making these mistakes. But at the same time, like, unfortunately, I relate to because we're all
he's very stubborn.
We're all that worst, stupid, stubborn version of a human being that David ultimately like actually is.
Yeah. He's very stubborn in a male way, in a way that's like makes sense for the character, and I think it's well done.
Weirdly, I believe their sexual chemistry more than I do any other coupling in the show.
Yes. By the time they're like being nicer to each other and holding hands, I'm like, oh, I think they could make this work, even though they're like not going to be together.
This show, so I want to talk a little bit about where the show leaves them. The book ends on, so actually something we've literally not touched on because we haven't gotten to Mercy much specifically. A big issue that happens at the end of the story in both versions is David gets Mercy pregnant and she decides to keep it.
Yes.
Now,
very passively decides to keep it.
Yes. In the book, Hillary says, I'm going ahead with my adoption of this boy. I don't want to be married to you, and I know you don't want to adopt this boy. Stay married to me long enough so that the adoption paperwork can go through, and then we get an amicable divorce. To which David, like Book David, who is the most passive non-character of all time, is just like, sure, whatever. I don't care. I'll sign what you want on the days you want me to sign it. And I'm going to keep sending checks to Mercy so that her baby gets all the prenatal care it needs. In the show, it sounds like you have a different reading on this, but the last thing you see between Hillary and David is a conversation in a car. That seems to kind of imply that, like, if they're not necessarily going to get back together, they might be more amicably in each other's lives.
I think my assumption was because him leaving the way that he did and then getting this woman pregnant is so much that I just don't really see her taking him back.
I think you're right.
And also, he does really want kids and she does really not want kids.
Yeah.
Because him asking her, like, was it that you didn't want kids or that you didn't want kids with me? And she was like, oh my God, is that really what you thought? Obviously it's that I
And
don't
you
want
realize
kids.
that was the miscommunication.
That's been the miscommunication the whole time. But I do think that the actors have enough chemistry that you believe that they could make it.
I think that's what it is.
I think
is that you do believe that they work together so much that you kind of want them to.
I believe,
I think
no,
you're
exactly.
right.
And I actually think that works well for that storyline too, where they're like,
well, because
oh man, we disagree on something that's so fundamental, but we clearly get along so well.
But yeah, the scene is better because it ends on you being like, I kind of hope they make sense.
Yeah, no, exactly.
He's a total dipshit. I actually think Jack Huston is like, I know we said we were just going to talk about the three women. I think he's really great. He has all this just like impotent rage. I'm really
and she
glad.
clearly loves working with him. Like she clearly
really
made his
glad
part bigger for this actor.
Yeah, he's got a scene where he's being kicked out of his own house and he's been like living out of hotel rooms, spending a lot of time at Mercy's kind of like shitty small apartment. And when he gets kicked out, you think, oh, is he going to get violent? Is he going to refuse to leave? And instead what he does is he goes and takes an espresso machine, makes a whole to-do about like unplugging it, making sure he has all the component parts. And then it's heavier than he expects it to be. So he's kind of lugging it out the door while trying to stare Hillary down to like be more dominant than her in the moment.
And he brings it to his hotel room.
It's
because also remember, it's payoff for a couple episodes ago when he's talking about how much he misses the coffee maker.
Yeah, he's brought it up a couple times before. He also has
it works
this, like,
really well. I was like really excited when he started picking that up. I was like, oh my God, this is what he's doing.
He, as a guy who's like clearly like he's going through a midlife crisis, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's a scene where he's with Mercy and they get in this like they start playing this really nasty game where they
actually really like this dynamic of theirs.
Theirs works really well, and I guess this will kind of be our segue into discussing
Why are
Mercy
you obsessed with this word now?
Because I thought it was a different word until 45 minutes ago. I really thought I
can't believe I've never heard you say it. I'm sorry that I pointed it out on
I use
camera.
the non-word apparently sieg all the time.
Sorry that I'm the first person to care about you enough to correct you.
Do you think that like
people have been enjoying watching you be stupid?
Do you think somewhere like my friends have a group chat that's just called like segue with a laughing emoji and they're like, hey guys, let's sieg on to the next thing. People are just mocking me about this.
I remember my friend once told me it was her stepsister, and I think she was like 18 or 19 at the time. They were like in the car together and her stepsister said denim. And my friend was like, says to her mom, she was like, you know how to pronounce denim, right? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, and why did you never correct her? And she goes, we thought it was cute. And she's like, she's an adult woman. You can't let her do that because you think it's cute.
I'm not going to call him out because he's going to be embarrassed, but he does listen to the show. I'm going to tell a story about another mispronunciation.
Go for it.
This is back when we were in college and we're all like sitting like, like around a big table, like reading our textbooks. And one of my friends looks up and says, what are undurfed children? And we're like, we're hearing it. We're not seeing the word written out. So we're like, what do you mean? He's like, I guess they're like kids who like, what does it mean to be durfed? And we're like, I don't understand what you're saying. And he shows me the page and I'm like, do you mean underfed? Like undurfed kids? What the hell is wrong with you? And he's like, oh. Well, the thing is, he played it off like I was the asshole for getting mad. He's like, oh, yeah, no, yeah, that
I think
makes
that's
sense.
incredibly relatable, though. I do that all the time when I'm reading.
Yeah.
And I'll have to go back and I'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that.
So like and comment down below what's more embarrassing, undurfed or sieg. But
sieg is funny because you're not sitting there reading.
I thought it was sieg.
And also because like,
I have no defense other than I thought something different than what was true. That's my defense is I was wrong. Anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about Mercy through her dynamic with David.
Yes.
He's like going through this midlife crisis. He has this really, really great scene where they're playing this really nasty game with each other, where they start saying, like, with their knowledge of each other and what they've done, she's like, you're a terrible husband and you can't be a father to, you're a failure as a man. And he's kind of like not quite getting off on it, but he's clearly getting some sort of catharsis for it. And he eventually says to her, like, you completely destroyed a family by losing a toddler. And she's like, oh, it's not fun anymore. But halfway through the game, when she's saying really awful things to him, he completely naked, like dick flopping everywhere, runs like out through like the hallway outside their hotel room.
The game that they start playing is because because people think this is new for the show. People think that he might have kidnapped Gus.
Yeah, it's a thing that it doesn't really do much. I think
No,
it's just
well, except for this scene where
there's
the game that they're playing is they're looking under surfaces and being like, Gus, are you in there? I wish he was here because then he would be here. Gus, are you here? And then he goes into the hallway and opens the hallway and walks into the hallway completely naked going, Gus, are you out here?
It's really funny. It's so absurd. It's the sort of thing that I'm like, here is a reason to adapt this for a visual medium.
To show dong, yes.
To show dong specifically.
And only for that reason.
Yeah, I would feel bad saying my favorite thing about this show is that it gives the shithead male character more development. But to my defense, Lulu Wang specifically stated that as a thing she wanted to do. Because we were at the Q&A and I raised my hand and I said, I was like, why did you
special little boy? Sorry.
I was a special little boy. That's our new terminology for it. I got to be a special little boy. But I raised my hand and I just said, what was your goal in expanding David's character to be an actual character? And she just goes, I wanted to have fun, meaning she probably likes Jack Huston and wanted more for him to do. I wanted to have fun and I wanted to give the men a chance to, have, their side of the story, which like, I'm not necessarily saying, honestly, there are lots of things about guys in David's situation, where he's a guy who's having a midlife crisis and he thinks what he's going through is special and new. And it's actually really uninteresting. But honestly, the kind of patheticness with which he goes about it is just entertaining enough that I don't care that it's not exactly original.
It is. Well, and also part of the reason I think it works so well versus some of the other changes is this change was made to the actor. Yeah. All of the other changes were just changes made to be changes.
Yes.
Nothing else was made with a specific actor's mannerisms involved.
No. Yeah. So I want to segue into our final. That I used it organically. I want to segue into.
We got to point it out every time.
Discussing Ji Yoon Yu, who is the actress who plays Mercy. Mercy is probably my favorite character in the book because you see her like being a hypocrite, being unsympathetic, but you understand it because everybody has made a mistake where we're like, "Fuck, that was my fault," and we beat ourselves up over it. And just the
I too have lost many children.
The consequences of look, I don't know how many kids I've fucking lost. All right. I'm just kidding. I've never lost a child.
I've also never lost a child. I feel like I need to say that legally.
I guess I'm better than Mercy, because I'm not responsible for losing any kids. But I think that's
someone who's listening to this podcast who's responsible for losing a kid. Oh man.
This is the meme of the FBI guy ripping his headphones off. He's like, I can't listen to this anymore. But
our FBI guy who's responsible for losing multiple kids. We have one FBI guy because we spend so much time together.
But she like internally in the book, you see a lot of her having this conflict of like, I'm trying to move on and live my life, but I feel guilt because I basically ruined an entire family and might be responsible for a child's death.
Yeah. I maintain I find her unlikable in a way that's really interesting and purposeful.
No, it's like, that's the thing is that I'm like, I like her.
She's the best.
Because I sympathize with the way, not necessarily with what she's done, but the way she feels about what she's done.
Yes.
I've beaten myself up in that same way over perceived mistake. I mean, hers isn't a perceived mistake. Hers is a mistake. There's no getting around. And I guess that's...
No, but also I understand the idea of, so then what happens now? Like, you can't just beat yourself up about this forever.
Which is why I don't want to call this a bad performance, but it's why I'm a little disappointed in it, because the way she ends up kind of getting depicted is like, it's almost this kind of like young millennial / elder Gen Z, just malaise of not really knowing what to do with your life. That almost supersedes any actual like guilt over, I can't move on with my life because of this terrible thing I'm responsible for. It more just feels like she is a directionless 26-year-old.
Yeah, well, because, and I think a lot of that is a direct result of the changes. So like things like, she doesn't really get a job until in the book. She doesn't really get a job until her mom comes and like kind of, she doesn't like force her to, but she's like, I'm doing this catering job. You come to these catering jobs. And in a way that like works for that. Whereas like in the show, they don't have the mom come till later. So she's figuring out job stuff on her own and it feels more just like a regular 20 something.
Yeah.
So yeah, like basically I don't think the actress is given a chance here.
Yeah. I don't think it's a bad performance.
Yeah, personality wise, like when she has to, when she's like delivering lines or like when they're doing that game together, her and David, I think that she works as the character from the book.
Yeah,
it is the changes that are bad for the character.
It's just a shame. Yeah, that just there's nothing. She's just so passive in a way that like is maybe an argument against doing this adaptation overall, because if they're all going to be feeling these things internally and just kind of reacting, then maybe that just is too hard to show, you know, in terms of interpersonal interactions when so much of it needs to happen inside the person's head.
I do think they did a good job of casting the little boy who plays Gus, because he is the cutest little boy.
Single cutest kid who's
the
ever
cutest
existed.
little boy. So like the second they showed him, I was like, oh my God, he's going to get lost. And I'm so upset.
Because we know exactly what's going to happen because we've read the book and we're like, fuck.
I know. And I knew that they were going to show it. And I was like, I don't want to watch this. I don't want to watch, because it's stressful in the book, but not in the same way, because I wasn't picturing the cutest little boy you've ever seen in your life.
But he's got this like cherubic,
I wanted to protect him so badly.
Cheeks, and you're like, he's just going to fucking disappear.
No, exactly. Well, and also I feel like that also leads to more contempt for Mercy, because you're like, how could you let go of his hand? Look, he's so small.
It is.
You have to protect him.
It is harder to sympathize with like, look, we've all stopped paying attention and something bad happened.
Well, I do think,
because in the show you see her like, she's anxiety texting her friend about, am I on a job interview right now? What should I be doing? And the answer is so obvious that you should be watching the fucking kid.
Exactly. Well, I do think
so much harder when you can see it.
I mean, this is something that the book does better, is because that scene is from Margaret's point of view.
Yeah.
You get what you get right beforehand is all the ways that Mercy has been very irresponsible beforehand, which are
She's
also
kind of a shitty nanny.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, like the scene where she comes to the airport like really, really late with wet hair, clearly having just showered, and no explanation. I was reading this and I was like, man, that's so annoying.
Yeah, no, I mean, you really get why somebody like this would just be so easy to map all of your pain and frustration onto.
Exactly. No,
because
exactly. And also I totally get like sort of being like, well, she was really nice with the kids before. This stuff only started happening now. How was she supposed to know that something like that was going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, it is ultimately, you're like, look, it's understandable in that everybody has stopped paying attention to their job, you know, the entire time they're doing it. And in the show, they do change it so that it's like, it's not exactly her job. It's maybe a tryout sort of thing.
Yeah, which doesn't work as well, but I understand that they don't have quite the time for it.
Yeah. Expats, a show that is maybe making me think like we should really, maybe we don't just jump at the opportunity to cover one of these, because well,
especially because like worth mentioning for us, neither of us really watches TV.
No.
Because if this had ended up being a success the way that like Good Omens was, we would have had a fun time talking about this.
Well,
but like it's very rare that we find that.
Well, we actually, one of the movies that we're going to talk about later, that showing prevented us from going to see the 2-episode premiere of Shogun at Japan Society.
I'm happy to not go to that.
Well, the thing is, I'm hearing now like breathtakingly excellent things about it.
I'm sure
like
the show
really,
is
really
good. I don't love going to screenings at Japan Society.
Yeah, we'll get into that one day when we do an episode on something where we go to the Japan Society.
That's fine.
But
I would like to see the show.
I'd like to see the show. I'm reading the book right now and having a good time with it.
Yeah.
But, and you know what's so funny is the movie we saw instead of it like just got 3 more days added in March. Like we could have just seen it like a week or 2 from now. Yeah, that's the funniest part about it. It's not the end of the world, but yeah, that's like it's just, I mean, that's the kind of ethereal nature of these things, is that like oftentimes they're one night only, and the times where you think you're making a choice between, you know, 2 things that are like, these are going to be your only opportunity for a while, then the other one just gets 3 more days added to it because it's, you know, because it sold well. That being said, Expats, maybe that's, especially because this is coming so soon after our episode on the curse, maybe we, instead of just being like, oh, it's interesting to see a TV show in the theater, maybe we wait for something that seems more specifically interesting to us.
Like The Curse.
The Curse? Shit, I had a great time covering that. I really liked that episode. I'm not even saying I disliked this episode. I was walking into the room with a little bit of dread of like, turns out unfounded fear, but I was like, I don't really know what I'm going to say about this.
I am surprised that we pulled this much out. Although to be fair, we can talk to each other about anything for any amount of time.
Yes. I mean, that's the thing, is I'm trying to segue because I'm done with you know, that's the thing, is I have no further thoughts about expats. Stop laughing at me. Okay. I learned a new word today.
It's the fact that you keep like,
am I supposed to let it go?
Emphasizing it.
Am I supposed to let it go unaddressed now?
Yes.
How?
Just
we had a whole to-do about it at the top of the episode. It's like the first 50. We're like, oh, look at us. We're so good. We got an hour out of Expats. 15 minutes of that is segue. We can't. I can't just go to saying it like a normal guy in this episode. We'll see if the next time we do one together, I even get
You're
to.
doing this in the next record, and they have no idea what you're doing because this episode isn't out yet.
This is stupid. This is the stupidest fucking thing we've ever talked about. Anyway, I'm going to transition into not talking about expats anymore.
All right.
Well, did you have final expats thoughts?
No, I don't.
That's the thing. You didn't even need me to stop the segue. See, I used it normal. I used it like a normal man.
Why
that
are you
time.
pointing it out again?
I'm just saying, give me credit because I did the thing you just asked me to do.
I'll give you credit later when you don't talk about it.
The episode title is going to be like Devin and Lily like fight with each other. Like, oh,
I don't want to fight anymore.
We're not fighting. Not seriously.
Guy who's definitely in a fight with his girlfriend.
Definitely in a fight with his girlfriend.
We're not
like,
fighting.
Ugh.
Oh, your eyes match your shirt. Me looking in your eyes and seeing Elizabeth Holmes.
Oh, they've got the same like empty...
Oh, you actually do have a similar eye color to her.
Yeah.
That's creepier.
That being said, I just kind of want to do a quick rundown of these that we went and saw that I think are worth. So like the first one we're going to talk about is They Came Together is like just joke for joke.
One of the best comedy
one
movies
of the
ever made.
funniest movies I've ever watched.
Yeah.
I want to bring it up because I've been talking to people about it since we saw it last week. Not many people know about it, I think.
No, they don't.
And I'm just happy to bring it up to people.
You introduced that movie to me. I didn't know it existed before you told me about
so
it.
They Came Together is like, I guess you would describe it as like a spoof.
I would describe it as a spoof
like a
movie.
parody. It's from the State, the guys who did the Wet Hot American Summer.
And it's a lot like Wet Hot American Summer.
It's in that it's just a live action cartoon.
Yeah, but it's also a parody movie.
But it's Paul Rudd and Amy Poehler doing a parody of the kind of like 90s New York, like Nancy Meyers rom-com.
Probably
basically.
like mostly You've Got Mail.
Yeah, You've Got Mail is the biggest. It's the framework of the thing.
Yeah, the way that
you know.
like Scary Movie is Scream and whatever the
less
other one
like
is.
Scary Movie in that there are fewer just reference sight gags. It's playing less with specific, oh, this happened in You've Got Mail, this happened in Sleepless in Seattle. And it's more about, these are the conventions of the genre. These are the way that a character in this plot
it does have specifics,
behaves.
but not as many.
It has I'm not saying it's without. I'm just saying
I mean,
not.
I will say I know the movie You've Got Mail very, very well. So I can definitely catch references.
But then it has these really wonderful comedic set pieces that I actually don't. The thing is, this is one that I straight up do not want to give away the jokes here because I wouldn't want to
They're so funny.
I wouldn't want to rob somebody of seeing these because there's a moment in this scene at a Halloween party that is the hardest I've ever laughed at a movie, I think.
Yeah.
I really think that
really
like
good.
this is the first time I saw it, I like it's like literally fell on the ground and it hurt.
Well, and also we had the worst experience we've ever had at an Alamo at this movie.
They brought us our food 15 minutes from the end of the movie.
And it was a 9:30 p.m. movie, so it's like 10:50. Neither of us has good stomachs. Like if I had known,
and I'm at the Alamo.
I would have eaten beforehand.
It's not like
It's not like I'm about to eat a healthy meal that's going to make me feel good. I ordered knowing, and we got there like 20 minutes early. We got there before everyone was there, and they still managed to take our order like last in the theater, and we ended up getting our food like last just by being there before everyone else. And like again, I'm planning my day around this. I'm like, I'm going to eat this at this time so that when I wake up tomorrow, I don't feel like shit. I felt like shit all day the next day because of the way I ate the night before. And I was like, what am I going to do? Not eat?
I'm already eating a fried chicken sandwich.
It came here. I'm hungry. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
It didn't make me not enjoy the movie, but I was like a little, and I do feel this way in the eating theater sometimes, where before my food comes, I'm a little anxious about like, where's my food? When's it coming? And I'm a little too preoccupied with it in a way that I don't really want to be during a movie.
When I am going to a dine-in theater, I do my best to show up prior to 30 minutes beforehand so that I can walk in, get my order taken, and ideally be halfway through my meal by the time trailers start. Because I don't like it's a distraction to be eating.
No, neither do I, but it's especially a distraction to be waiting for food while the movie's starting. Well, like there was the time when we saw Blade Runner where they didn't notice that we had ordered 2 of the same thing. And we were like 20 minutes into the movie when we were like, they're not bringing me my food. I have to deal with this. But also I would like to be enjoying the movie, but like I'm really hungry because again, I planned my day around this.
It's the biggest failing of a dine-in theater, I think, is that you can't there's 10% of your brain is not going to be paying attention to the movie.
Yeah.
Because you're like,
either you're eating or you're thinking about food.
I was doing, I went to a screening for like a future episode last night, and I just was like,
spoilers.
I just want to order something. So I just like ordered some M&Ms, like just to have something to snack on.
Yeah.
And the guy's like 20 minutes in, by the way, it was just M&Ms. Just bring me a package of M&Ms. So he's like 20 minutes in. He's like,
take them out of like your pants
he's like,
pocket.
I'm so sorry, sir. We're out of I'm so sorry. We're out of M&Ms. And I'm like, okay, what else do you have? And he's like, well, we have a various selection of other candies. I'm like, no, tell me the 3 or 4 other candies that you have so that I can just tell you the one that I want.
Yeah. And I can get back to the movie that I'm watching. You were seeing, yeah, never mind.
Well, no, it's, I was
just going to say the genre.
I haven't announced it. I mean, so yeah, I went with a previous guest to go see Howard the Duck. So it's not like it's a movie that you need to like super take seriously. But I'm like,
it would be nice to have some popcorn, some M&Ms.
It's just kind of like, I ordered this thing, and it's nothing against the servers or anything, because
no.
This is a normal interaction that you have to have with servers at a sit-down restaurant.
No. My issue is the idea of a dine-in theater.
Yeah.
Because also like the idea of us getting our order taken last isn't the server's fault for having a specific, they very clearly have a way that they are supposed to go to take the orders
And
based on
somebody
where
always
you're
gets
sitting.
screwed whenever there's a pattern like
exactly. And again, that is not their fault. It is the way that that's done. And also, I think one of their kitchens is out. So they had,
they're undergoing construction,
and it
right
was
now.
Valentine's Day. So like presumably the theaters were all full, and they had one kitchen to do everyone. So like it makes sense, but also it's like I just don't think I get food at a food theater anymore.
I do my best to eat beforehand. All that being said, despite a not great theater experience,
now I'm hungry.
this is a movie that I don't think you need to see in a theater. I'll tell you what, there's a joke at the end that is like just so like out of nowhere.
It's fun to watch people see it.
I'm so happy I got to be in a theater full of people who I think largely hadn't seen it before, reacting to the audacity of the joke all at once.
Oh yeah, the people next to us, I felt it was a group of girls, and I don't know how many of them had seen it and how many of them hadn't, but it was clear that some of them had not, and I was really enjoying hearing their reactions.
Yeah, it was great. So that is the thing, is I don't actually want to give it away because I want to encourage as many people as possible to go see They Came Together. Because it's really funny.
Just like what we did
today. It's kind of slept on.
To my friend's basement.
We came together to my friend's basement, the recording studio.
I thought you would think it was cute. You just seem annoyed.
I was trying to be polite by just moving past it to the next thing.
Okay.
You can't pout every time one of your jokes. What if I pouted every time one of my jokes didn't land? I'd be
then you would.
Yeah. Oh, you jumped right on it, didn't you? You were I was about to shoot myself in the foot.
You know how they say
you were unholstering your gun.
You know how they say that you'll get more wrinkles if you frown all the time? You would look like an old man already.
What else is the deal with airline food? Are you good? Can we move?
Be nice to me.
You just jumped on me. This is the yelling at each other episode. Connor's going to kill us. We're blowing out the mics. I hope this is listenable. Like I hope somebody can get through this whole thing without just being frustrated.
The someone who's listening to this who knows the segue story that I was telling at the beginning, who's like screaming at his podcast, like, it was the CEO, and like telling the story the whole time.
If you know,
and you keep saying segue, and they keep being like, I wish they knew.
If you know the name of the guy who died on a Segway,
I'm just gonna Google Segway death after this. I believe it was the CEO, and I believe he segued off a cliff.
If you know the Segway,
just like what we're doing.
If you know the Segway death guy.
If you know him personally, we would like to interview you.
Speaking of which, I'm dying in the middle of a Segway death.
I'm leaving.
Yeah, well.
Dying in the middle of a Sieg death.
I'm dying at Sieg. We have to cut all of that out,
Sieg
right?
off a cliff.
We have to cut all of that out.
I think you have to leave it in.
I should just have an edit-in point right before we have to cut all of that out, right? Like we just cut it out and then leave in me saying that we have to cut it all out. Anyway, we are going to Sieg into, I'm just kidding, we're going to segue into our next movie. I'm really glad we got a bunch of laughs out before we talk about Star 80.
Not a funny movie at all.
Not a funny movie at all.
I heard the people behind us. It was two people who came together. They came together. It was two people who came together, and one person had seen it and one person hadn't. And the movie ended, and one person turned to the other and went, "Why did you make me watch that?"
I think that is most people's reaction to this movie.
Especially because you had told me that it was an upsetting movie going in.
Extremely
It sounds like a lot of the
movie.
people around me did not know that it was going to be unpleasant.
I mean,
I think
so
they probably heard Fosse and went, not going to be unpleasant. Not that his movies aren't unpleasant.
his movies are pretty.
His movies are unpleasant, but I feel like this one is particularly like
This is an ugly movie.
it's because
So-
it's also very heightened.
Yeah, so this was screening at the Roxy Cinema as part of I think the series is called My Bloody Valentine, and they're about kind of
Okay,
the series is about like toxic relationship, drama, like romance.
they're gonna air this episode next year.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, swish. Really?
Okay, are my jokes that bad?
No, I'm on the ropes now. I'm just doing anything I can to fight my way back to the center.
Sorry.
They're like movies, romance movies that you can't
I'm ruining the episode.
Don't worry about. I'm doing that plenty on my own. You don't have to worry.
Don't worry, you ruin every episode. I only
Wait,
make them worse with my
Wait,
edits.
in the premise of your joke, am I saying to you, "Don't worry, you've ruined plenty before. It's nothing special"?
Oh,
that
I
you're
thought you were
ruining
saying
this?
that you're ruining every episode.
Let's just say it's. I don't know. I hope people have a fun time with this. I don't know. But Star 80 it's based on a real story about this guy played by Eric Roberts who meets a teenage girl. Her name was, I forget what her name is right now. But anyway, he meets this girl.
I feel like it's a really cute name.
It is a really cute name. It's Dorothy Stratton. I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
Uh,
I love the name Dorothy.
and he kind of, in the way that like many like slightly older men often do to like teenage women, is he
Teenage women.
sorry, teenage girl. I think I was saying
Sorry, no,
men
I get
and like I had
Yeah,
said
yeah,
men
yeah.
earlier in the sentence, so I didn't want to correlate it to
No,
girl.
no, I get it. But yeah, but
But-
teenage girls.
Teenage girls, and he kind of manipulates her into starting out in porn, or not like photo pornography, right? I don't think
I don't
that this
really
is-
know what that's called.
I
at the
don't-
time.
I don't
I think
think-
it is probably pornography.
Yeah, I don't
at
think
the
there's
time.
any implication that it's video pornography, at least in the movie. I don't know
No,
enough about
it's
Dorothy
photo,
Stratton.
but my assumption is that it's
Yeah.
still called pornography.
She eventually gets into Playboy. Her
it's like
career,
basically grooming what he's doing to her.
yes.
I mean,
well,
it's
it's not
100%.
basically grooming. It's
It is
it's
grooming.
literally grooming. But she eventually makes it into Playboy. Her career kind of starts to take off, and he, after hastily making sure they get married before she gets too big, against the advice of basically everybody else in her life,
Yeah.
he eventually becomes embittered, feels like he's being left out, and it culminates in his murder of her.
Is all of this 100% true? I mean, obviously, like we don't know exactly
the
what anyone
broad
said.
the
to-
broad stroke like events of
Yeah.
what happened are true.
Okay.
Yes. I don't know if every single interaction.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it was just.
Some things are
Wondering.
changed because
Yeah.
some things are changed because basically everybody who was alive to like that is in the story was like, don't make this movie. Like, please don't. It's based off a article.
Hefner's like, make this movie, but make me the star and hero.
Yeah, so it has Hugh Hefner is in this movie. He's
He
played
has
by
to be.
he's played by everybody's grandpa, Cliff Robertson, who is like who's this kind of like friendly grandfatherly figure. They initially wanted Harry Dean Stanton, who, God rest his soul, is one of my favorite actors of all time, is a weird looking fella. And he said, if you cast Harry Dean Stanton as me, I will sue the shit out of you. You will never make this movie. And he's kind of portrayed as this guy who is just kind of passively benefiting. He's gotten to the point where he's just turned this into a mill where each of the girls is kind of grist for it. And even though the movie is set up that way, he's just so kindly and like nice in every interaction you have with him that you almost like forget what kind of like a sleazy piece of shit he was.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, pretty much his whole life, that's the propaganda that's been going around about him.
Yeah.
Like that's anytime anyone's written about him, they've been told to write him like that, like
Yeah.
anyone who's lived there. So like that certainly tracks with the public perception that he has wanted to have
Yeah.
for himself.
I think this is a really like powerfully made movie. The reaction to it, this is Bob Fosse's final movie. He dies really soon after he makes it. During the production of All That Jazz, which is a movie about Bob Fosse, a movie I've called maybe my favorite movie of all time, and I think I stand by that.
It is really funny that this is the second time you've said that in this episode.
All That Jazz?
No, you said that about a different movie at the beginning.
What did I
You
say?
said it about Heartbreak Kid.
I said one of. I said All That Jazz may be
Oh.
my definitive.
I thought you were saying
favorite.
I just
movie
thought it
of
was
all time.
funny.
Yeah. No. They're both very high up there
too.
for me. But All That Jazz may genuinely be my singular. That's such a hard question to answer. But
No,
it's-
I know.
it's-
I don't
it's a
like
good-
answering that movie.
It's
that
at the very
movie.
least something that I am like comfortable having be my go-to.
Yeah, I get that.
He makes All That Jazz, which is effectively his version of 8.5. And it's a movie about him saying, I'm a piece of shit who should probably die because I probably deserve it. And then he makes Star 80 and everyone's like, why would you make this? And he's like, I thought I would be dead. I don't know what to tell you.
I
I'm
didn't know what
sorry.
else to do.
I just thought, I thought I would make the worst thing anybody's ever put to film.
One of the
it's-
best true crime films I've ever seen.
We don't really like, honestly,
It's done really well.
I would actually really love to do a full episode on Star 80, and maybe we will at some point. I just wanted to touch on it because it felt
Please don't make me see it again in a theater.
it felt thematically linked to Valentine's
Yeah, I
Day and this
agree.
sort of thing. But
That's
I
not how
think-
we feel about each other. That's not us.
that's not us. I think
Okay.
it's everyone here is gonna like think I'm like so like mean that I'm like making you be this insecure that
my graphic for this one is gonna be
it's just a text of me being mean.
no,
to
I was gonna Photoshop the two leads of Star 80 onto a This Is Us poster and put a not. This is not us.
like This Is Us the show. With
Yes, with Sterling
Oscar
K.
nominee
Brown.
Sterling K. Brown in it.
King.
So that's the thing is I almost don't necessarily want to fully dive into Star 80 because now that I'm sitting here talking about it,
Sure.
I'm like, I wish I like had time to fully flesh out an episode on it. And maybe we'll do that at some point. I think it's a really evocative and powerful movie. I don't necessarily know that it's saying anything like original enough to warrant how deeply unpleasant and exploitative it is.
Yeah.
Because it was made against the wishes
I understand what you're saying. Well, because
of
the thing
Dorothy's mother.
Yeah, well, because the thing that
Uh,
sucks is like now enough people are gone that you could probably make it. And you could make it while also portraying Hugh Hefner as a bad guy.
Yeah,
But
I don't think
Bob
that-
Fosse can't make it.
No.
And it's not as good of a movie if Bob Fosse can't make it.
No. Yeah, that's the thing is that I think that this is such a thing worth seeing. I agree with you, by the way, that for many people, one viewing is going to be more than enough.
You're like, I got
But-
tickets to go tomorrow. I'm going next week.
Yeah. What would that do to you if you just saw Star 80 once a week? Because I mean, Eric Roberts he's the main guy in it. And I just was watching this and I was like, what life experience could Eric Roberts possibly have been drawing upon that he was able to play like such like a sleazy, abusive? What in his real life could have possibly led him
You're
to
very funny.
have any insight into how a guy like that, would
Yeah,
behave?
you're very funny.
Yeah, no, it's like it is a fan fucking tastic
really good.
performance. He's really, really good in it. I guess we'll just kind of table that, knowing that like I don't really like. That's the thing is, all my guests have like this ongoing list of what would we cover, and I'm kind of sitting here thinking, I'm like, maybe that's kind of a wish list one for me, is I would kind of like to sit down and do Star 80. The last movie we saw, which is also one that I am sitting here saying, I'm like, I could do 10 hours on.
I could talk about the movie for
Yeah.
a million hours.
We
We can just talk about the experience,
Yeah. The Heartbreak Kid,
which we've also talked about multiple times
a
before.
movie that I always go out of my way to see in a theater when I get the opportunity to. It's like I missed my chance to ever see the Shogun episodes in a theater because that's TV. That will just literally never happen again. I went and I saw this and I was like, I love this movie so much. I was just elated. I didn't care that, that I had missed.
And it was such an easy thing
that I had
to
missed a
do.
literal once in a lifetime thing for. The Heartbreak Kid, it's weird that it's a bit of a comfort movie for us at this point.
Well, because it obviously it's not like the prettiest movie, but the jokes are really funny.
It's a hilarious movie. Things I picked up on it this time is how the kind of blind class ambition that he has, the Charles Grodin's characters have. We're not even going to do, because we're running low on time, so we're not even going to do a full rundown of it. We'll just touch on elements of it.
All you need to know is that he's an asshole.
Yeah, I mean, like the basic premise of it is like a guy on his honeymoon meets another woman, falls in love with her, and schemes to find a way to leave his wife and get with the new girl, despite the new girl's father wishing he were dead. It's really funny. It is at times really painful to watch.
The ultimate cringe movie.
But the way it's a movie about like Jewish like assimilation and anxiety around that, I think. But a thing I really noticed tied into it is there are a lot of little hints about how it's tied in with like a really capitalistic, like anxiety to constantly be moving up, and about how the commercialism that's around us at all times pervades us and just kind of shapes our thought. And that, like, it literally, both the weddings in the movie have as like a dance, the Buy the World a Coke song.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also his way of moving up is marrying a richer woman.
Yes.
He's still doing the same job at the end of the movie.
Yeah, he is. He
hasn't tried to progress at all.
Grodin is amazing in this. He's not even one of the people who's nominated for it. There's 2 Oscar nominations for this. I always think this stat is crazy. Eddie Albert gets nominated for Best Supporting Actor this year.
Nice.
In the year where the other nominees are 3 guys from The Godfather and Joel Grey from Cabaret.
Wow, he did not stand a chance.
No, he didn't stand a chance. But the thing is that, I mean,
I believe it in there.
He deserves to be in there.
The first Godfather?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Khan.
It's Khan, Brando, and Pacino, who shouldn't have been in supporting because he's not.
Wait, so wouldn't Brando have then been lead? Sorry, I'm honestly just curious.
I don't know. We'll look it up here
Khan.
while we. I know I love Khan too. Don't accuse me of not loving Khan. It's funny. Now it's telling me to look up Star 1972. But
yeah,
and then Jeannie Berlin, who really broke my heart this time.
I know.
I've seen this movie
so
a handful
cute.
of times. She plays the wife that he is trying to get out of marriage with.
She's maybe the most me character that's ever been put to screen.
More so than the one that Elaine May, Jeannie Berlin's mother, plays in a
well, because that one's so much more heightened. This one's more realistic. This character is much more of an asshole in a really realistic way.
I don't even think she's an asshole, honestly.
He?
I'm sorry. I thought we were still talking about Jeannie Berlin.
No.
Yeah,
I was saying that the male main character. I think that Elaine May is exploring something similar, but in a more realistic way in this movie. So then like the wife character that he dislikes is more annoying and more annoying and incompetent in a realistic way.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Brando is not in supporting. Robert Duvall is in supporting that year.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's Eddie Albert.
Yeah, because
Joel
if they're
Grey
going to
wins.
put Pacino in there, they're putting Brando in lead.
Yeah.
Because like he's the big guy.
I
know who Brando is.
I know who
Marlon Brando is.
I was totally, completely blown away because she is such an absolute sweetheart. She's playing a character who is like, she's 21 years old, so she's annoying in all the ways that come with.
She's very relatably annoying, but I also think she's very likable to the audience.
Well, a thing that I notice every time I watch it, becomes more pronounced, is that her and Charles Grodin are actually reasonably well matched. There's a scene early on where after they have sex, she has this like very needling, like, I need to be reassured. I need you to tell me, was it good? Was it good? Was it good? And he blows up at her. And he says, it was freaking amazing. It was wonderful. It was and he's like, and she sits there and she like makes a pouty face and says, I married a grouch. And they sit there and it breaks the tension in a way that you're like, there's an obvious learning curve in the way that there is with any young or new couple.
Yeah, no, they should not have gotten married when they did.
No. But there is a germ of like, oh, but she's attuned to him in a way.
Yes.
That like
they did know each other. They didn't just meet.
That they're well matched enough that if he weren't such a shithead who was willing to put in the work, they could actually meet in the middle and probably be pretty happy together, which actually just makes the whole thing more tragic.
Yes.
That like she could have reasonably been pretty happy with him as a husband, I think.
Well, yeah, because this other woman is just an idea.
Yeah, I mean, she even is, you're a joke. There's a she like keeps telling him like, you're a joke to me. If my dad told me to drop you, I would do it tomorrow.
Yeah, no, she's very clearly this idea that he has projected onto her. Yeah, because she's nothing like his current wife, who is currently really annoying him.
Yeah, there's no, I think there's no other reason other than she represents something that's exotic to him, is a different way of living. And as I can tell you, as her family, Sybil Shepherd is the other woman. Her family and Eddie Albert, they're from Minnesota. As somebody who is from the Midwest, let me tell you, you're not going to find any happiness moving to a colder place. There's a really there's that really great scene where he's like living out of a hotel when he first follows her to Minnesota, where over a montage of him like picking up a rental car, going to like eat takeout, living out of the hotel. There's a weather broadcast playing over the whole thing where they're like new record highs of 3 degrees over zero. And it's just emphasizing how just bitterly cold the whole thing is.
Yeah, I really like the line where when he's talking to her, when he asks her where she's from and she says Minnesota, and he goes, "Why would you live there?" And she goes, "What's wrong with Minnesota?" And he goes, "It's so far from New York." And like they're in Florida, like they're not in New York.
His kind of blind, like vain aspirations get in the way of like he actually likes. The thing is that if he would just get out of his own way, he actually likes the life that he's built around.
Yeah, no,
himself.
he's just having a quarter life crisis.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to maybe
that he
be
won't
like,
allow himself.
I think he's probably supposed to be about 30 or so. Like it's not necessarily
29.
It's not like problematically predatory. It's just you're marrying a girl who's too much younger than you. And it is the sort of thing,
and who's also a little more idealistic than he is being older.
Yes, at a time when it was more commonplace to get married younger, it is kind of a telling sign that like, why are you not married by 30? Like at the time, that's most of the time.
Me
it's
looking
like,
at you the day before your 30th birthday last year.
Okay, thanks for doxing. Thanks for age doxing me. Yeah, but The Heartbreak Kid, as I said, we always go out of our way to see it in the theater because it is illegal to watch any other way. It's like sometimes a rip will be up on YouTube at like
there is a rip on YouTube. It's 240p.
At like 240p.
But it's always up.
I would love to start a harassment campaign against the pharmaceutical company that has basically just been holding the rights to this movie hostage, basically on the merits of, well, we know they like eventually some film restoration company is going to pay us for this. So why would, and like, we don't lose any money just owning this thing. So why would we sell it for anything other than like they're being very absolutist about how much, they would charge to sell it. I would absolutely love, I know I don't have much of a following, but I would love if anybody who follows here would look up who owns the Heartbreak Kid.
If any of you are billionaires, can you please just buy it?
Yeah, I would love if like somebody just outright, but that's the thing is I don't know what the price point is. I don't know if it's so expensive that just
me calling them, "Hi, can you just tell me how much you want for it? I'm just curious."
Yeah, but
starting a GoFundMe.
Yeah, tell them they're a bunch of shitheads, and tweet at them. What do you call the action of sending an X?
Are they not still called tweets, or are they called sending an X?
I truly don't know. I'm not on it anymore, so I don't know.
Yeah, but people who are on it call it Twitter.
I know,
except for Elon Musk fanboys.
It's so funny that he decided to name it like what like people marketing skateboards to 10-year-olds in 2003 would call
Disney
it.
XD.
Yeah, no, literally.
That's basically what it's like.
That's The Heartbreak Kid, another movie that, like I said, I try to go.
Best movies of all time.
It screens in New York fairly frequently.
At least once a year.
I think. By the way, I want to talk a little bit about the print we saw it on.
Definitely a different print than the last one.
Even numbered reels, like they all seem to have a heavy blue tint on them.
Yes,
that
made the movie feel sad.
Which honestly, I might have been more because of the difference in color grading. I might have been more susceptible to I legitimately was like crying at like the scene where he tells her he's ending the marriage.
It's really upsetting.
It's really upsetting when you see it in like blue and gray tones. It is more depressing.
Me playing sad music over it just to see what happens to you.
Yeah, just to see how, like, because she's so authentically, naively heartbroken, because the worst part of it is that she saw something good in this guy and is now being punished for being optimistic. And that's really, really hard to watch. The Heartbreak Kid, if you can find a way to see it, great. If you want to harass a pharmaceutical company online, I'd strongly endorse doing that. Is it illegal for me to endorse cyberbullying?
I don't know. You're probably supposed to say I don't endorse that.
I'm sorry. I don't endorse it.
That was parody.
It was parody when I said that I endorsed it. I'm
just saying enough words that legal
this is
people,
all nonsense. I allegedly endorsed it when via parody I said to do it. I'm just telling people to send tweets. I'm not like doing anything. I'm just like, tweet at them, be like, I'm sure the people who own it aren't even aware.
Don't tell them to kill themselves.
I didn't say, you said that.
Do not. I just said I didn't say that. I'm saying don't tell them. That's what I'm saying not to do.
I think we're going to get flagged on YouTube because you just said kill themselves.
Bleep it.
Okay. Well, great.
I've solved your problems. Also, I don't think you get flagged for stuff like that. I think you just can't be monetized by YouTube.
Yeah. Well, it's not a problem.
I don't think
now.
you can go back and monetize a video. Like,
I don't think you're right.
As in, like, if you're not currently, I don't know that. Like, again, someone who knows YouTube is screaming
sound
at
off
their
in the
phone
comments
right now.
if you have a way that I can monetize this thing you're watching right now. That being said, that's our wrap up of our little capsule Valentine's Day programming. All of our movies that we watched are technically about romance, but not any of them about how to successfully, achieve or live in one. I feel like even though this has been a slightly different format of an episode, I'd like to end it the way that we always do, just to kind of bring it back.
Sure.
You're smiling as if you feel like you have like an answer you're excited to give to my last discussion question.
Yeah.
Which is always, what obscure film that on an off chance it's filming here in New York City, do we have to absolutely make sure we go see and do an episode on?
Yeah. I want to be honest with you. About halfway through this episode, I wonder if you can see it in my eyes. There's a point where I remember you're going to ask me this and forget to have one and think of it on the spot there.
Yeah.
So yeah, let me know if you find that. Serenity 2019.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Serenity 2019, one of the first movies we saw.
It was the movie that we saw the night that we became boyfriend girlfriend.
That sounds right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's very important to us, but also we had a good time.
Movie you have a good time at that I don't really want to tell anybody about. It is worth watching.
I remember we went with the idea that we were probably going to leave. We were like, we're seeing only bad reviews of this. The trailer doesn't look very good. We will probably leave in the middle of this. And we had such a good time in that movie. It was so much fun because it was not a good movie at all.
No, it is not.
There's a million things called Serenity.
I am trying to find.
Not the right one.
No, that's the
Firefly.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that what I remember most about because I was trying to remember who the other people in it is that it says starring this was like a running joke with us for years. It was starring Academy Award winner
Anne Hathaway,
Academy Award winner Matthew McConaughey, Academy Award nominee Diane Lane, and Jason Clarke.
And it was especially just the way it was spaced out in the trailer. It looked like a burn.
It's just so funny.
Even though he has the and.
His agents negotiated the and during the trailer. I'm like, that makes it look worse. You should lead with Jason Clarke, Academy Award. Because then I'm like, it's not his. To be clear, I love Jason Clarke. It's not his fault.
He deserves an Academy Award nominee.
Honestly, he's at the point where I'm like, I'm ready for him to be nominated
for this movie.
For Serenity. I don't know about all that.
But and Jason Clarke was a thing that we said to each other for a while.
If we see Serenity, which is like not impossible, I feel like
but it's pretty unlikely.
I feel like some
loser,
loser, who does stuff like talk about repertory films on a podcast or something.
Some loser who saw Serenity in 2019 and really enjoyed themselves.
It's a wild ride with a full audience. Like it is worth it.
People were confused. Mm-hmm. They were like, why is this happening?
Yes.
It's got a really bad twist that nothing should have.
The thing is that it's the type of like out of nowhere twist that I'm like, I actually enjoy it because it is so left field.
Well, and also because the movie's so crazy. If that happened in something that I was enjoying, it would be ruinous.
Yeah.
But because the movie's so
Yes.
crazy and weird, I'm like, of course it would end like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Serenity,
Anyway, that's my answer.
Serenity is a great
I thought
addition
so.
to the list. Other than that, thank you to Lily Steinberg for the promotional images she does for the show, for being here for this very weird episode, strangely structured. I don't necessarily know that.
minute.
I don't necessarily know that we'll do things exactly this way because my biggest takeaway is that I would have loved to just
have not done this.
I would have loved to do full episodes on any of the 3 movies we ended on.
Yeah.
And it just maybe if anything would have liked to give a little bit more breathing room to Expats so that we could, instead of feeling like we have to pair something with it,
Yeah.
let maybe more thoughts about the book kind of come out at whatever rate they would or wouldn't, or just talk more about the Q&A, which we only kind of really got to touch on. I would have liked to talk about that a little bit more.
Sorry, I forgot. I wanted to talk about, because we saw a bunch of screenings. She wasn't at any of these, but we got a new film at Lincoln Center villain.
Who?
The woman who yelled at you twice, once in one movie and once in another movie.
That's right. We don't have time to get into her.
We don't.
We do have another like villain that we keep running into.
And it's always FLC where we have villains. It's always there.
Yeah, I know.
All the worst people live on the Upper West Side. This is a drag to my parents who are listening.
Yeah. You should clarify that you're from the Upper West Side, so you're allowed to say that before.
Well, I also just said that about my parents. So like, even if I
true.
never lived there, I'm allowed to make fun of my parents.
That's true. All right.
You're not allowed to say that. Your parents don't live there.
My parents don't live on the Upper West Side. My parents famously, when they came to New York for the first time, they said, "Where do Lily's parents live?" And I said the Upper West Side, and they said, "Of what?" Famously between
I forgot
us,
about that,
obviously.
honestly.
Yeah. So I guess not famously.
Not
between
famously.
us.
Famously to you. Famously between the front and back of your brain.
Thank you for the promotional images and helping to produce the show. Thank you to Kristen Eng for our logo artwork, which I think we are going to be altering a little bit here soon. So hopefully we'll have that up for an upcoming episode soon. But other than that, this has been Bad First Impression. You can follow us on all socials at BFI Pod. You can, if you are watching this early on YouTube, I think that I'm not 100% sure. I think this one is an exception. This one might not actually be coming out the night before, but if you're watching it, please go download, rate, review, and subscribe us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening to it, please go to YouTube and is it like,
comment, subscribe.
like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell up in the corner so you can get notifications.
Yeah.
As
also, because this is coming out this week, and they'll have just enough time. They should go to your Instagram and submit their movies for the award show.
It is literally the last day.
They will have 24 hours to do it.
It is the last day because the day after this comes out, we are recording our next episode, our Oscar special.
Yes.
The only award show called the BFI Awards.
The only one?
They don't actually call it that. I looked it up. I can't remember what it is right now, but they don't call it like the BFI Awards. So we have it.
That's ours.
We're allowed to do it. I've got a fun little game. It will be even more fun the more submissions I have, the more data I have to pull from. So it's a quick little shortened version of like basically an awards ballot where we're asking people to put in their picks for basically the major categories. And then we got a fun little game that we're going to play with people's submissions. We went over it. I'm actually really excited to do it. I think that one's going to be a really fun time.
Mm-hmm.
Should be a nice chaotic way to look about it. And hopefully an opportunity to talk about some other under-discussed or non-nominated performances in movies from this past year that I liked. I know when I submitted mine, I was really happy. There are lots of nominated movies that I really love this year. Overall, I think it's a strong nomination pool. But at the same time, I was able to throw in a bunch of things that are the type of movie the Academy just never pays any attention to. and that I legitimately
Yeah.
loved as much
And we
as
have a normal cutoff. We have the end of the year, unlike the Oscars.
Yes, we do, which should be a little bit of a subtweet about something that I love that is making it in that didn't make
And
it
we will
into the
talk about
Oscars.
it probably
we-
extensively.
And we will talk about it extensively. But yes, make sure you submit that. Make sure you follow us at BFI Pod on all socials. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe on all of our podcast platforms. And if you have any questions, suggestions, thoughts, is there a theater that we haven't covered? Is there a type of movie that we're neglecting, we're not really paying attention to? Do you just want to tell us what you think about the way we talk about things?
Who has a better bob today?
Who has a better bob? It's you. I mean, I'm like desperate. I'm very
I
shaggy.
just got my haircut.
I'm very, very shaggy. I already noticed her haircut separately prior to the record, by the way. So nobody get mad. Well,
you didn't mention her haircut.
You just very passive aggressively were like, I just got a haircut, by the way. And it was days ago. So I noticed it on that day.
I was just kidding. I was just telling them something they could comment on. I just thought it would be funny. I wasn't trying. I promise I wasn't trying to be mean to you. I was just trying to mention something.
Okay. During the promotion outro is the best time to be
This
doing.
is the time that my podcast Good First Impression starts, is in the last second of your episode.
If you have suggestions, please submit them. You can DM us on social media on Instagram or TikTok, or you can submit it to mailbag@bfipod.com. As always, I've been your host, Devin Warner. You can find me personally on socials at WhatIfDevin. Other than that, until next time, we'll be expatriated. I don't know.
We'll continue loving each other.
The tagline for it was we are what we live through, or something was the tagline to a page. So until then, we'll be what we survive.
This is taking a long time.
I know. This is a slow motion car
Okay.
wreck. Bye.
Like,
bye.
Like
No.
if you
Bye. Bye.